With great power comes less avenues for character development. Hey guys, MasakoX here. One of the biggest subjects of debate in this series and in de facto many franchises concerns the matter of how strong characters are and how they can fare against other similarly skilled opponents. You see it all the time. Those power level bar charts, the scenarios which I must admit we here do contribute towards on this channel, and what ifs and all that, as well as the straight up questions. Can this form from this series face off against this form in another series? And that's what Screw Attack and now Rooster Teeth hit upon, and I myself have been in on a couple of occasions. Still waiting for round 3, Superman. And before we begin, I want to point out that I am putting out some new merch over on my storefront, which includes content which has only been available at my UK con appearances, as well as some new shirt designs trickling in over the next few weeks, so be sure to check them out in the links below. So what am I trying to get at here? Well, this is something that I'm sure that you are all aware of. Power levels became less of a thing past the Frieza saga, and they were pretty much in place to just poke fun at the Frieza Force and how blinded they were to the concept of potential and an over-reliance on technology. Never give up, trust your instincts and all that jazz. It's kind of interesting when you look at it that way. Many of us fell for that joke, Toriyama. You got us good, especially the kiddie winks. But the real reason for this topic I wish to bring up with you today is about Super Dragon Ball Heroes, the video game, not just the promotional anime. Something we talked about a couple of weeks ago, if you watched that video, if the algorithm allowed for it. During a recent plethora of celebrations focused around the Dragon Ball Heroes 9th anniversary, it's almost a decade old, at a Shonen Jump event, something pretty unusual was revealed that hasn't really been touched upon prior to then, and could make waves in terms of human Saiyan hybrid potential. It was revealed that Xenotrunks, also known as Time Patrol Trunks, basically the mascot of Heroes as well as the Xenoverse series of games, has now been granted the ability to transform into Super Saiyan God form. That is huge. But is it though? I know that some of you might be surprised as to why we are even mentioning this in the video instead of making a quip about it over on my Twitter. After all, Heroes has given us a lot of weird transformations over the last few years, including Super Saiyan 4 Broly and Super Saiyan 3 Nappa or Vegeta. But that being said, the reveal of this character getting this power may be a huge deal in the world of Dragon Ball and what it can mean for any other properties going forward. But the same old questions do crop up, just like with every other character that is introduced in a fighting capacity. A lot of fans in the community have been asking this question. How powerful is this character? It never changes, does it? Never ends. Not counting the Dragon Ball Fusion special mission, this is the first time we have seen a Saiyan hybrid achieving one of these Saiyan God transformation whatever. And since Heroes has never been closer to the main medium before, we think that this is a good time to talk about something. Strength or power in Dragon Ball, and what it means for the future of writing episodes for the series now that Dragon Ball Super Broly has, really reached the pinnacle of what we can expect from modern Dragon Ball. You know by now, dear viewer, that we rarely discuss power levels in a significant manner, due to the fact that it is a very tricky subject to deal with fairly. It's difficult because I am a lover of statistics, and the idea of categorizing numbers really appeals to me, so this should be my jam. However, I am aware of the tightrope that all of this ensues, and for any of you out there doing this service for the community, trying to pass the numbers, you do have my respect. But this is a gigantic Pandora's box, and people have very conflicting opinions on this matter, and rightly so. How power levels were brought to the fore in Dragon Ball was so that the reader could better pass the information and scaling of the upcoming villains in Dragon Ball Z. That is at least according to Toriyama. His mission was to make things simpler whilst giving the heroes a distinct advantage in being able to hide their powers at a time when their energy was much lower than most of the Frieza Force. Little did Toriyama know, however, that this whole plot device, what he was trying to achieve, would evolve into its own thing and make things tricky for all concerned, including himself. Hence why he probably dropped the whole idea about power levels later in the series. I mean, I don't blame him. Pretty often, we as the fandom are trying to be more consistent than Toriyama or Toei would ever be, and that's nothing weird. All fandoms like to have everything sorted out and even and easy to understand. We all want to have a constant, so as to make things streamlined and accessible to any new fandoms or any new experts or enthusiasts. So that means they feel confident in their findings to be able to report to you like I'm doing now. To be wrong about something is pretty awkward. Though stuff like Super Saiyan God Trunks is not connected to the main media, it's still got moved from fan theories to the realm of possibility. Something that could easily rock the boat when it comes to consistency. Kinda like with Gogeta back in the days of Fusion Reborn, prior to its reconception in the Broly movie, with a much more chilled design and personality, visibly so. Actually, in a way, this whole action kinda makes him and Vegeta kinda the same, only with different clothing. We knew that it technically should be possible in the main canon, we just didn't get it yet. And then we did. Is the Super Saiyan God Trunks phenomena destined to have the same result? It is possible. In the Super Canon, Trunks got a different power to the main batch of Saiyans, and that of course was Super Saiyan Rage. But as you know, it didn't get a name for weeks and weeks and weeks. We spent ages thinking about it until a magazine article came out and then just dubbed it as such. This power seemed like the bridge between Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan Blue. Exposure to God Ki, whilst also playing with the idea of rage boosts, something that Gohan had in spades, another Saiyan hybrid. It was Trunks having his own power, even though he technically has Super Saiyan Grade 3 all to himself, but why is this such big news, Masako? Why are you trying to use this chestnut? Well, first off, it opens up the possibility of the Half Saiyans catching up to Goku and Vegeta, which to many of us is a serious problem. Seriously, it means that you don't need to be a full-bodied Saiyan now to be able to use God Ki. So long as you have some Saiyan in you, and you have a pure heart, which we know all the Saiyan characters have these days, even the new Broly, who are in the main canon, especially Gohan and Trunks, they're good boys. You can tap into this form, which we all thought only Goku would have just 6 years ago when Battle of Gods came out. After all, Toei is getting ever closer to officially connecting the Xenoverse universe with the main storyline by admitting that our future Trunks and Xeno Trunks might be one and the same. Just one has a different jacket, much better suited to the Arctic Take Heed Movie 7 Trunks. Let's cut the branch that we're sitting on right now, just to provide conversation and really brew up some debate. Do they really need to catch up with godly transformations to match Goku and Vegeta? In theory, Ultimate Gohan should be better than that power. That power, the ultimate one, is ever evolving supposedly, right? And as you know, it's ultimate. It's kind of in the name. The bang is down, and so is any villain that comes across Gohan, in theory. Also, what about Broly, who was able to fight Golden Frieza and Super Saiyan Blue Saiyans in his own Super Saiyan form? Which grade it was is left up in the air. I think it's probably at least grade 2. But do these guys really need to be bestowed with yet another form? Why can't they just simply perfect what they already have, so that we have forms that run in parallel with one another? It's all different. It provides some kind of variety, which would work wonders for anyone wanting to make their own unique OC. You just pick and choose instead of using the same powers. And you know, back in the day of the original Dragon Ball, things were much simpler. Sure, it was a path for Goku to become stronger, but the gap between our Monkey Boy and the rest of the cast always seemed, you know, easy to bridge. If you go back and watch it, Goku was just at the top of the bunch of really strong people at the time. People had other powers which Goku didn't, which made him think carefully and have to work around the problem with pure strength. People like Mercenary Tao, King Piccolo, Tenshinhan, or even Roshi could sidestep Goku convincingly if they had the smarts. It made things interesting. Without the knowledge of Goku's Saiyan heritage, you can imagine that one day, Krillin could catch up with him. In fact, at the end of the first series, there was only about 100 battle points between them. In the days of Super, if you're within 100 points of someone, you're just as good as equal as them. Imagine that. Krillin and Goku nigh on equal in power. You wouldn't get that nowadays. Now with Z, things started to get more complicated, despite Toriyama's wish to make them less so. At the beginning of that, our heroes had to team up with Piccolo to stand any chance against the Saiyans, and even that ended up with some heavy casualties. But at some point, less than 2 years later in World, our favourite Namekian could take on second form Frieza. That is a huge gap. And if you think about it, there was a period of time where Piccolo was technically stronger than Cell and could fight quite evenly against Android 17. It was in flux all the time, and it was around about the time when power levels didn't really matter, and this was all thanks to the fusion of him and Kami. But with the end of the Cell saga, the power creep was so massive that it left every non-Saiyan pretty far behind. In fact, some of the characters made light of this situation and notion and just accepted it. If your favourite character was a human or Piccolo, I bet you wouldn't like them talking about how useless they were. Also, have you ever noticed that before Broly, Cell was the villain who had gone through the biggest power boost in the entire series? Starting off from a creature that was cautious around Piccolo, Cell became an enemy that proved to be a challenge for Super Saiyan 2 Gohan in days. A character who was way stronger than anyone before him. Wow. Then we got to godly levels of power, and if your name isn't Goku and Vegeta, you're gonna have a bad day. That's the moment when Toei and Toriyama started to write themselves into a corner. What do you do to make the fans excited again, without being repetitive and relying on the same old gimmicks? Yes, Mr. Yamamuro. You see, blowing up a planet sounds pretty gnarly and all, 30 years ago, but that stopped being an impressive feat years ago in Dragon Ball after the Buu saga. These days, right now, we have characters who can do that because we've seen literally time-breaking encounters. That time in the Broly movie where Broly and Gogeta split the space-time continuum asunder just for a case of having a bit of a Barney? Not even Gogeta could comprehend what was going on and what they'd done. The characters are losing the plot, literally. That's why I think it's hard to take stuff like Jiren's backstory and 17's initial wish for the boat seriously. You see, in the world where your characters can tear a hole in the fabric of reality, it's hard to ground the stakes, you know? Yes, Toriyama likes to subvert expectation, and on a comedic level at that. 17's humble desires, relatively speaking, seem funny, but they're not becoming anymore of a Dragon Ball character on the front line. More of a minor character's wishes, but the Broly movie handled this much better by making us care for its main character. But the series itself kind of failed to live up to that. It's like they learned from Super and showed their results in the Broly movie. So that's gotta be something. And while characters such as the androids are able to catch up, and Roshi can still do amazing stuff thanks to his experience, despite apparently being weaker than Krillin, to many it still feels weird to see characters that were so far behind for so long suddenly return and hold on, even if you can counter and say that Goku is able to scale back his power so as to gauge weaker allies. Yeah, I know that, sure. It's cool to see someone other than Saiyan succeed in the series, but that takes us to one of the biggest lies of Dragon Ball. That Jiren says strength is absolute, but in the context of the show, it's one of the most ironic statements ever made, as in Dragon Ball strength is relative. As in that old quote from Marvel's Stan Lee we once used, whoever the writer likes the most will win in a fight, when asked about the Hulk and Thor. Writers are naturally biased. If you give a writer a series they know little about, they are less likely to write something compelling, and instead write something that is expected of them, and something easy. If they know one character, then cool, that character might do well. Characters in Dragon Ball are not characterized by any cohesive system of power scaling anymore. You need to know the ins and outs of power scales and what the characters are, and the history of the show, in order to get that solid grip when writing anything for the series. Levels these days are meant to serve the story, not the person. If the writers could find a way, they could give Jiren a weak spot that would be exploitable by the likes of Monarca. Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan Broly aren't evenly matched. Roshi could not do much against Cell, but in the manga, we could see him holding his own against enemies much stronger than Cell in the Tournament of Power. Why is that? Well, it's because that's what the Triple T Toei, Toriyama, and Toyotaro had in mind at this particular point in the story. What would be cool? Well, okay, have Roshi be able to dodge Jiren a couple of times, like Ultra Instinct. Yes, that's unexpected, and yes, that's subverting the convention, but no guys, that's just wrong. So, how powerful is Super Saiyan God Trunks going to be? As strong as he will need to be for the story. That's just the way it is these days. There's no definite number to be had, only biased and awkward writing when done improperly. Don't get us wrong, it is an exciting prospect to see a Saiyan hybrid rise up to that level of power, but by revealing this, the Dragon Realm has rekindled some expectations, and those expectations are connected to the fact that we want to see more characters catch up to Goku and Vegeta. But as we mentioned before, the more godly characters that we are gonna have in this show, the harder it will be to create some true stakes and perils. Where do you go from that? Multi-dimensional Lovecraftian monsters? Or maybe you go back to square one like in Fighters and you bring everyone back to the same point. Would the fandom accept that second option? I don't know really. But with great power of your characters comes great writing problems. So what do you guys think? Where would you take these characters? Do you want to see hybrids and humans get a boost? Or maybe it's Goku and Vegeta who need to be nerfed? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!